Hey everyone, discussion video today talking about some Minuteman logistics stuff, namely as it pertains to the circling back around trend that we're seeing a lot of videos talking about light machine gun squad automatic weapon type platforms. So, not a new concept, obviously. I mean, fire team dynamic, military doctrine that saw as integral to fire team makeup with what the members are between grenadiers, riflemen, and your team leader, and then your saw gunners. So nothing new. But there's a lot of videos that are coming out talking about new weapon platforms and stuff. So some of it's shilling. Some of it is doing a little bit better job talking about some of the dynamics involved with the employment of a IAR type system or SAW type system, especially with like your light fighter and now the Lima 6, which is a cool platform and everything. These types of systems coming out using linked or belted ammunition instead of just standard magazines. Again, IAR system uses magazines, drums, whatever. Some of the counterpoints and some of the logistical issues I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about, but we have been talking about in private groups and in Discord groups and things like that. One of them is Homefront Scenarios. Everyone go check out Chris's channel. He did a shout out with me in his recent video, so I'm returning the favor and shouting his channel out, so go check it out here on YouTube, but also his Discord channel, because it's a really good channel with a lot of great people in it, and we're having really good discussions based on a number of people's different experiences, backgrounds, and just knowledge when it comes to the nomenclature and nuances of doing these kinds of things from a professional perspective, as much as just a learned, accumulative base of knowledge for doing Minuteman type things and otherwise. So, something that I had talked about and that I'm getting to the point with this discussion video is sustainability and logistics in your supplies and support. Running a belted system is going to be very difficult because you need to have a consistent supply of links for your ammunition. So, you're going to have to be stocking up on a lot of belted ammunition and or buying additional large stocks of links to have for your ammunition reserves. Logistics. When it comes to ammunition reserves, you should probably have 7,000 to 8,000 rounds. Typically it's going to be 5.56 for a lot of people domestically. 7,000 to 8,000 rounds base of a supply of 5.56 ammunition. We're going to talk about this for a second, okay? So, some of these nuances. Linked belted ammunition for these types of platforms, because there's a lot of people kind of crazing over these new belt-fed systems. The Light Fight Upper is awesome. I've shot one. They're really cool. I've shot saws in the past, PKMs, 240s, all that stuff. I have a lot of experience with those platforms. But linked belted ammunition is kind of difficult to get. It is more expensive. And again, you're going to have to buy a lot of stock of supply of these resources to have to link more ammunition or have more linked ammunition to feed these support weapon systems, which a lot of people are not going to be able to have. Especially in your typical Minuteman group, it's probably only going to be a few people, notwithstanding families, but again, some of those family members aren't going to be able to be doing these Minuteman things in the event of whatever exigent situation. Again, we ad nauseum discussing in various videos and topics about those kinds of things and whatever people's grand delusions are, or whatever more practical real-world experience-based situations could unfold that you would need to activate your mutual aid group and conduct Minuteman type operations. That aside, when it comes to supply and logistics, couple of points here. Okay, so we talked about the belted, the linked needs, and the belted ammunition needs. Couple of points here. One man with an 8 magazine, 7+1 in the gun, standard basic combat load is 240 rounds. 4 men with a basic combat load is 960 rounds, not including the squad leader. With the squad leader, a 5-man combat load is 1,200 rounds. That's just one 5-man fire team. 1,200 rounds for one patrol, one outing. An automatic rifleman needs to carry a plus-up, be that also in 40-rounders for the nuances with IAR and things like that, or a red right-hand system, whatever it is, the Klein machining, AR-RPK, whatever. Be that also in 40-rounders, drums, whatever, if not just more standard capacity magazines, because of expenditure in the event of a gunfight. A lot of rounds are going to be getting thrown out in a reactive contact. It's not a lot of precision shooting. Anybody who's been there knows this. Say an additional 5 magazines and then 1 to 2 more per team member just to cover rate expenditure for the squad automatic platform. You're looking at somewhere around 1,700 rounds in one trip out with a 5-man team. 1,700 rounds. If you get into a tick, troops in combat, or reactive contact, you get ambushed, whatever it is, that is particularly bad in whatever environment, you're going to expend nearly all of that, if not all of that ammunition, say for a couple of rounds. You have no military logistics, big point, and you are your own resupply. That is how it is. That is how it's going to be for most civilian Minuteman groups. I throw out the AK round stock figure for consideration that's about 5 patrols, and give or take some other exigent factors like area defense situations of a homestead or a patrol base, or what the fuck ever else. Worth of supplying ammo in the figure that you expect to be fighting consistently, obvious considerations for a slew of different what-ifs, and all the goobers and tubers under the sun that want to pontificate with a broad spectrum of thought, whatever those things could be. Okay? So this is what we're getting at with just numbers, just base supply figures for yourself in your group. 8,000 rounds, and that covers if you're in a continuously kinetic and high-risk environment that unfolds with all of this situational stuff. That's only 5 patrols out, if you get into contact every time. Okay. Now, if you're not getting into contact every time, okay, cool, that ammunition's going to last longer, but you still need to do training. And you still may at some point end up expending some of that ammunition, again, in home defense situations, or whatever else in patrols, or conducting raid for supplies, or rescue and recovery operations, whatever it may be. Again, number of exigent situations and whatever those other things are. But a lot of people are not talking about the actual logistics, the actual numbers when it comes down to every round that you need in your stock, in your supply, to sustain yourself for an extended period of time. That also crosses over into a lot of other things. Food. You know, water's a lot more sourceable and sustainable for a lot of places and for a lot of people. There's a lot of different ways to purify water, all that stuff. Water sources are pretty attainable. Even some places in the desert, you dig down deep enough, you're going to hit water. But other things like food, okay, hunting, those aspects, seasonal shift, how the hunting is going to change, how foraging is going to change over the seasons, like all that stuff. That amount of sustainability, you know, that expands way beyond just talking about your fighting load logistics. But for the sake of this video, we are just going to kind of try and focus on that here in this discussion. So, rounding it back, that's the point that I'm making here, is you're going to need quite a bit of supply of ammunition for yourself. So everybody that's coming to the table, everybody coming to link up and bringing and compiling, putting all your supplies and stuff together, everybody better be bringing at least 2,000 rounds of ammo. And then compiling that together for a 4 to 5 man team, because you're going to need it, especially for a sustained long-term kind of situation that does end up being high risk and kinetic, you know, a dangerous situation. And again, I talked about, you know, everybody can pontificate whatever under the sun and whatever their view and delusion is or whatever else. You know, because everyone's is different. Everyone kind of sees things a little bit differently. There's a lot of grounded, real world people that understand things, and they know as much as I do. You know, we're on the same wavelength with that, and we've seen what happens in a destabilized nation, how bad things can get, or a number of destabilized nations, how bad things can get. So, when it comes to just your bare essential of logistical supplies that you need for combat operations, just going out and doing patrols where you may end up getting into a serious fight, you need a lot of ammo. You're going to go through a lot of ammo. All these dudes on YouTube that are, you know, burning belts and burning drums and whatever, they're doing that for entertainment. Most of them do not talk about the actual real world logistics that you need when you have no military system of logistical support for your group. Because a lot of money and a lot of supplies get thrown around there. When you don't have that, you are on your own. You have to deal with that. So you're going to need a large figure of just ammunition for that kind of stuff. And when it comes to the squad automatic systems, now, squad automatic weapon systems are force multipliers. They're for good area effect and suppressive fire. Okay, they're not precision platforms. Trying to make one a precision platform has some efficacy to it. Depends on the environment that you're in, and again, what you're capable with your own logistical supply. But when it comes to this, most groups are not going to need a squad support system, especially if some of the guys are, especially if a couple of the dudes in the group are running force reset triggers, super selectors, super safeties, whatever, you know, that kind of stuff, where they can increase their semi-automatic rate of fire as needed. But again, you're going to burn through a lot of ammo, so you better be bringing more with you. Now, myself and a lot of my people, we have a standard of bringing no less than 12 mags. Okay, that's still a lot of ammo that you need to have prepped and ready to go, and have a supply to replace when you come back, if you come back, you know. So there's a lot there that people are not considering. 8,000 rounds is a lot of ammunition, and that's a base figure. That's a base figure. You should have more than that, you know, for a long-term sustainment thing. So that means everybody needs to be bringing 2,000 to 2,500 rounds with them when everybody goes, brings their supplies together, meets up, and does whatever, you know, and has it in your home base of operations, your homestead, your patrol base, your backwoods cabin, wherever you're going, whatever you're doing. That is a lot of logistical supply that you need just for offensive and defensive operations in the form of ammunition. That doesn't include spare parts. That doesn't include, you know, maintenance, lubricant, all that stuff, and everything else in tandem with that, equipment and otherwise, and just life sustainability, life-sustaining resources that you need to be able to endure over an extended period of time in a long-term, dynamic, and at times dangerous, lethally kinetic type of environment. So these are just kind of things that I wanted to bring up, and that a lot of people are not thinking these things through, or just have no idea because they've never been there and done it before, and don't understand that there's a lot more to it than they realize. And there's a lot of systemics that are working against you, as much as you really do need to have proper planning in place and a proper logistical support and supply pipeline in place for you and your group to be able to be successful over a long period of time, and thrive through, during, and after whatever kind of situation has hopefully ended. So, a lot here to talk about, a lot here to consider, a lot here that people are not thinking about. Okay, so go back and make sure you pay attention to those figures that I'm throwing out, those numbers, because you're going to need them. And kind of a final note here with magazines, you better be holding on to your magazines. Don't just be dumping them, because you're going to try and go back to get them in a contested area. When you're reloading, you better put that empty magazine back in your pouch, or in a dump pouch, or whatever. You're going to need to retain it, because if you don't have a lot of extra spare magazines either, you got nothing to put that ammunition in. So it's just some of the stuff I wanted to talk about here. A lot of discussion about it, and there's a lot of people out there that are just being fucking stupid about this stuff because they're not thinking things through, and they just want to hype the next new thing. And it's like, hey, guess what? It's not how it works in the real world and in a fucking war zone. So, sorry if I seem a little irritated here, but it is a little irritating because there are people talking that don't know what they're talking about in the long term. And don't understand what it really takes for logistics to be sustainable and thrive through a number of different situations, to include full-scale war. So that's what I got here. Take logistics and supply seriously, because that's what's going to keep you alive in the long run. So, as much as your hard and soft skills and your knowledge of tradecraft. So, that about rounds it up for this one. All right, good discussion. Lots to think about. Metal up. Out.